Coming up on this episode of Nintendo Cartridge Society, we sneak past tentacles to reach the greatest treasure of all, the 10 best Game & Watch games. It's dangerous to go alone, so the Nintendo Cartridge Society goes with you. Welcome to Nintendo Cartridge Society. My name is Patrick Ellers, and I am joined, as I am always joined, by my co-host, Mark Mitchell. How's it going, Mark?
It's going really well. I am very excited for week 2 of Game & Watch month.
As am I.
That's it.
Oh, okay.
Just wanted to share my excitement
Yep.
for the show we're about to record.
I am also very excited about it. You and I have been... I mean, normally when we talk about games for the show, we try to keep our impressions of the thing sort of to ourselves.
Yeah, we
until we get on
purposefully
mic. Yeah.
do not talk to each other about things that we are interested in talking to each other about.
I forget you exist when we're not on mic.
So that way we could save it, save the nuggets coming out of our mouths.
That's right.
For the episode itself. That is 100% true.
Yeah, and I'm a little bit nervous for what we're about to embark on, because I don't know that we have the same taste in Game & Watch games. We might.
Yeah, oh my goodness. In general,
Yeah.
That's such a good point. I hadn't actually thought about that. Now I am terrified because in general, you and I would say, share similar tastes.
Yeah.
There's a lot of overlap in
Right.
video games, in facial hair, in clothing.
Look, we seek out a diversity of opinions.
But
Yeah.
there are no guarantees. And I feel like, with every ranking that we do, every time we have a discussion like this, we, say that we're going to leave it being friends.
Yes.
And never is there really a risk that we won't. But what if we found out that tonight we have such divergent tastes in
Yeah,
Game &
it's
Watch
possible.
games
It's
that it is
possible.
impossible for us to compile a 10 best list? And the podcast ends here tonight.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be tough. I have formed strong opinions about some games,
Mhm.
and there are some of these games that I think I legitimately love. So I mean, if they're on your worst list, I don't know. I'm going to be beside myself. Mark, before we get to that, speaking of worst lists, my copy of Sonic Forces. Would you like to borrow it? All you gotta do is email us at Nintendo Cartridge Society
At gmail.com.
and give us a mailing address where we can send you my copy of Sonic Forces for the Nintendo Switch. You play it for as long as you want. You send it back. Doesn't cost you anything. I pay for postage both ways. There may be a copy of Untitled Goose Game in there. It's no one's fault. It's just something that happens.
Another thing you can do is you can leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. We appreciate it so much. We love reading them. One of the joys of doing this show is being able to interact with all of you. And so anytime we hear from you, I feel like we're aliens in the vast void of space, and we're just waiting
this
for
is
those little
cool.
microwaves to make their way to
Mhm.
us, so we can see old episodes of Happy Days or something like that.
Right.
Listeners, your 5-star reviews, your emails, your tweets are like those episodes of Happy Days reaching us in the nethers of the universe.
That's a sad position that you've put the aliens in. I feel like it's usually, I have a very first contact view of this, where the people who are not getting contacted are the humans, and it's the aliens.
Oh,
that
I think
need
they're
to.
bored. I think they're just
You think they're bored?
I think the aliens are just sitting around waiting
Yeah.
to hear from us.
Why else would they go into space
They're
unless they have nothing to
dying.
do?
Exactly.
They should have started or reviewed a podcast, and that would have been something that.
Oh, right. That's what
that's
started
what we're
this all.
talking
That's
about.
right. That's right. Bringing it back.
No, we do appreciate it. Thank you to everyone who has done that. Mark, we are in Game & Watch
Oh, wait.
month.
No. I'm sorry.
No, you're
I'm
still
sorry.
going. You're still going.
If you leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, we will give you a shout out if it's on the US Apple Podcast Store, because we check there. If you review us anywhere else, please send us an email, send us a tweet, hit us up any way that you can. Write it down, include it in the copy of Sonic Forces that Patrick sent to you, and we'll give you a shout out on the show.
Yeah, and no more carrier pigeons. We can't. We are not set up to receive them.
That's right.
It's been a disaster in the past, so please use some other method of informing us that you have reviewed us on a non-Apple Podcast US store. Mark, now we are in Game & Watch month. It is October. You're in it. You are soaking in it like a hot spring. why don't we just get into it? Let's determine the 10 best Game & Watch games. So this is going to be based, we think, exclusively on gameplay, right?
Right.
We have not had a ton of opportunity to interact with actual Game & Watch hardware, because if you're buying them like secondhand now, like the market has them, like you can't get one for less than like $60, and it's going to be beat up, and will be a bad one. Any of the like. Because I've been cruising, right? I've been cruising eBay and various like secondhand market sellers online, and everyone, everything goes for like over $100. So like it's just not feasible. So Mark, where have you been playing Game & Watch games?
Yeah, so I've been playing the Game & Watch Gallery games. In the US, there's 4 of them. The first one for the original Game Boy, Gallery 2 and Gallery 3 were for the Game Boy Color, and then Gallery 4 was for the Game Boy Advance.
Yeah. And so we're playing the first 3 of those on our 3DSs, using the virtual console there. And then we've played Game & Watch Gallery 4 on my Game Boy Advance because I picked up a copy of the cartridge. In addition to that, I've also been playing them just on the, you can download the DSi versions of them on the 3DS, which is a great way to play or to engage with the like classic versions of them. There aren't the modern versions of the games in those. It's just the classics, but it looks, because it's using like the full graphical power of the 3DS, it looks an awful lot like the original displays, except backlit.
Oh, that's really cool. We should actually talk a little bit about what you referred to as the modern version. That's what they are referred to in the gallery games as well. So,
because even in calling them modern, they are like 20
at
years
this
old
point,
at this point.
Yeah, exactly.
The time between the original releases and the modern is now less than between the modern and now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in the Game & Watch galleries, they have when you select a game like Manhole or Fire, each one of them has a modern version, what they call a modern version, and what they call the classic version. The classic version is like a facsimile of playing on actual Game & Watch. It's the same gameplay, same graphics, same sound, presumably, or at least a reasonable facsimile.
And similar graphics for sure. Like especially in the Game & Watch Gallery 1, the one that's for original Game Boy, you can see, so like, or I can at any rate, like I can perceive where like the pixels are approximating what the like LCD displays were able to do in more like analog sort of, like it's a non, or it is digital, but it's not pixel based.
Yeah,
in its original release.
In Game & Watch Gallery 4, just kind of a neat thing that they do is, on any of the old LCD like
displays
games like this, you could actually you could see where the pixels would show up, or where the what would you even call it?
I don't want to say like the sprites, like the individual character models. You can see every possibility at once,
and they reproduce that in Game & Watch Gallery 4, which is kind of neat. But anyway, so there's a modern version of these, which basically takes the core gameplay idea behind the classic version, and then updates it. It's all with like characters from the Mario universe. The music is new. The graphics are new. Usually you're like in the Mushroom Kingdom most of the time, but then also the gameplay is fairly different as well. So it's more than just a facelift. On a lot of them, they've changed the gameplay to either make it like faster or more intuitive or just different.
Yeah, and like I find, so a lot of the ways that or the only way that you unlock more games in these galleries is by scoring obscenely high points in the individual games, and I find that it is much easier to score those points almost universally in the modern versions than in the classic.
I totally agree. And actually, I just said that they make them, the modern sometimes makes it harder, but I actually think it's usually the reverse, where classic is way harder and modern is easier, or at least modern has a slower learning curve. Like, I feel like universally, the modern ones give you a lot more opportunity to fail in the beginning and learn how it works. And then it ramps up the difficulty.
Well, it's also sort of necessary too, because like the modern ones will throw like where variation was impossible in the where like enemy variation is impossible in the original versions, it is easily possible in the modern versions. So like someone falls faster or has a smaller like arc of their jump, because it's just a different character, that would be physically impossible in Game and Watch,
Yeah,
in
yeah.
the original Game and Watch.
Yep.
And so, like you having to learn those rules as you encounter them means that it is necessarily a little more forgiving early on.
Yeah, totally. So, but I guess the reason to bring that up about like modern and classic is that I have factored in both in making my decision
Yes.
on like what are my favorites of the ones that we played. Sometimes like I like the modern version enough that it makes up for the shortcomings of the classic version that otherwise wouldn't be on my list. Sometimes it's the reverse. Sometimes the classic version to me is way better, and the modern one brings it down.
Yeah, my absolute favorite game on this list, which I will not reveal at this point.
What if you did and we just went home?
Well, yeah, okay, sure. The classic version I think is amazing, and I don't care for the modern version. It's not just that I think it like is a worse version. I don't like playing it, whereas I do like playing the classic version. So, I mean, who knows? And then there are other games on here where like I would definitely prefer to play the modern. But so yeah, I find it to be a weird kind of mix of that. That like I don't have like a universal like yes, the games are all improved by these modern versions.
Yeah. There's no consistency in that regard.
Which is great. I sort of love that there is no consistency in just like Game and Watch in general. I think if there's one principle that is fairly uniting among most of the games that we're going to talk about, it's that they are like reflex based and like twitch based, and you got to like play them fast or it's going to run away from you.
Yeah, absolutely.
There are of course a couple exceptions. Okay, so I started off by making a list of all of the games that I have like under consideration. So obviously you and I have not played all 47 plus Game and Watch games. Here are I have a list of 22 that I have played over the course of the last couple weeks. They are as follows: Ball, Flagman, Vermin, Fire, Judge, Manhole, Helmet, Lion, Parachute, Octopus, Chef, Egg, Turtle Bridge, Oil Panic, Donkey Kong Jr., Greenhouse, Mario Brothers, Mario Cement Factory, Rain Shower, Donkey Kong 3, and Boxing. Those are the 22 games that I considered as for my top 10.
Yeah, those are. I feel confident that that covers everything that I played as well.
Great. So we're gonna. I think I have mine in order from number 10 to number 1. Mark, you have an amorphous list.
That's right.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, we're gonna go back and forth. Mark will name one. I'll name one, and we'll write them down. And at the end, we will just get to. We're gonna whittle it down to 10, and we're gonna rank them.
Okay.
Okay.
Sounds good. So I'll go ahead and start.
Yeah.
And my list, because that's the way I wrote them all down,
right,
is in like the order that I played them. So starting from Game and Watch Gallery 1, the first game on my list of like favorite Game and Watch games is Fire.
Yes.
And I feel like Fire is a true classic. So in Fire, there are two Mr. Game & Watches that are holding a trampoline, and other Mr. Game & Watches are jumping out of a burning building.
Mr.'s Game & Watch.
That's right. And they have they have like a predictable arc, and your job is to like catch them on. You move the two Game & Watch at the bottom, holding the trampoline, and you are like bouncing the falling people into an ambulance.
Right. And in the classic version, Mark, this is also on my list. It is number 6 on my list. As they move down like towards the ambulance, their arcs get shorter. So there's like less time between, when you have to catch them, but everyone falls at the same rate. So it is really just about seeing the order they fall in and getting yourself in the right position in time to catch them.
Yeah, that's right.
And do we want to talk a little bit about the modern version of the
Yes,
game too?
because this is one where I think both the modern version and the classic version are very good.
They both shine.
And the modern version doesn't do anything like extremely different
Right.
because the core gameplay of Fire is very fun.
It's so solid.
And because like there is that consistency in the classic version, there's the consistency of the arc. When you mess up, it truly is
yeah,
like
my fault.
your fault.
Yeah.
And so that leads to such great replayability because you're like, ooh, I know I can do better.
Yes.
And so it makes it very fun.
Yeah, no, I agree with that completely. I think there's also I mean the big change in the modern version is that it takes there are two additional characters that you're Mario and Luigi, and the building that is burning down is like Peach's castle.
Yeah, it's a castle.
It's a castle. Somehow it burns.
And instead of trying to bounce the Mushroom Kingdom citizens who are jumping out of Peach's castle, instead of trying to bounce them into an ambulance, I mean, maybe it's an ambulance, but it's like a big toad ambulance.
Yeah, it's
a
like
big
some
mushroom
sort of
ambulance.
mushroom carriage.
Yeah.
Yeah, and every now and then, instead of a Toad that you're bouncing across, it is a Yoshi or a Donkey Kong Jr., right?
And occasionally an egg.
Yeah,
Eggs
sometimes
will
an
fall
egg,
out as well.
Yeah. And the egg will sometimes be a Bob-omb, and sometimes it'll be an extra life.
My memory is that like the eggs, like when they hit the trampoline, they crack, and yes, when they open, they can be different things.
Right, and you don't want to catch the Bob-omb.
That's right.
You let the Bob-omb go, because look, if you take the Bob-omb to the hospital, you got a Joker Dark Knight situation going on there. Yeah, I mean, the Donkey Kong and the Yoshi just have like shallower jump arcs, so you have to tend to them a little bit more frequently. But yeah, I think, and this game appears in both Game & Watch Gallery 1 and 4, and the upgrades to like the modern version of it feels great in both of them. It's like colorful and fun in the modern version, and in the classic, I don't know, there's something so like appealing and universal about the implied narrative of like rescuing people from a burning building.
Yes.
That like it just works and is fun.
Yeah. This one I found, I mean, I'm at this point very open to where it lands on the list, but Fire is a stone cold classic. Like it really holds up in a way that a lot of these games I would say do not.
Sure. I think there are a lot that actually, or for my money, do hold up.
Well, I mean, I think we'll end with the top 10 that all hold up, but there are a number that probably won't make our list that don't fare as well.
So we both shared that one. Would you like me to offer one now?
Yeah.
I'm going to put my number 10th on my list is Manhole, which is the game where you have to there is a sort of bridge on the top and a bridge on the bottom, and there are two holes in each one, and there are characters that are walking on the top from left to right and on the bottom from right to left, and you just have to cover the holes so that they don't fall in them and die. And in the classic version, it is exactly that and has no changes whatsoever. The characters on the top and bottom have different predictable like times that they take a step. So this is one where like listening to the beeps and like the rhythm of the noises the game is making is really important, so that you can understand the speed at which everyone is walking, or like the timing of their walks.
Yeah, and the timing on Manhole in the classic version is really important because you learn that, and a lot, but not all of the Game & Watch games have this, is there's a little bit of grace as to like the sound is almost more important than the visual cue in Manhole, as to know whether you have successfully stopped someone from like, or you successfully allowed someone to cross.
Right.
Because the sound is like, I would say like a little bit ahead of the graphics. And so when you have somebody coming from right to left and somebody coming from left to right, and you have to choose which one is actually going to make it first, the sound becomes really important.
Yeah. And like hearing that like meh of them like taking the step and knowing that you are now free to move to the next location, super fun. I love using the buttons to make it go diagonal.
Mm-hmm.
It's really satisfying. And then The modern version of it replaces the little Game and Watches with the little Game and Watch guys crossing the bridges with Toads, and occasionally a Mario.
It
Is that right?
decays.
A decays.
And there are Marios come at when you hit like 50 and 100 points,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
kind of like as a bonus there.
And they're faster. But you are Yoshi. And so instead of just blocking one hole at a time, you are sort of lifting the manhole covers, so that you can like lift them all up so that you have several opportunities to like get them back. And there's even more of a grace period here because they can start to fall, and if you like prop up the little platform, that you can save the characters and keep them going. This is another one where I feel like both versions of the game are viable and good and fun. And I really liked high score chasing in both of them.
Yeah, I thought Manhole was really good. It's not on my list, but I can definitely see an argument for it. It is another one that, like you were saying, just really makes you want to go back and continue to play it.
Yeah.
Because it feels like you finish and you're like, I know I can do better.
Right. It is one of the most like twitchy, as fast as you can, like just keep up with it, games on here for my money.
So the next one in my top 10 is Parachute.
Yeah,
This
I
is
got Parachute on here
yeah.
too.
So the classic version of this is that little Mr. Game and Watches are jumping out of like a military troop transport helicopter. So to me it has a very like World War II Western Front, or really my initial thought was like Vietnam vibes.
Yeah, I was gonna say like Commando.
Yeah. So they're jumping out of like this,
Rambo.
like military helicopter, and you're in a boat at the bottom trying to pick them up. If they land in the water, they get eaten by a shark, which is
Awesome.
it's really funny. Like, and there are a couple of like, I guess I would say like shocking deaths in the Game and Watch collection, but they are all rendered in such like a humorous way that it is really funny. And then then you're like dropping them in the boat, trying to get them to like Palm Tree Islands, or I guess really in this one, once they hit the boat, they're good.
They're safe. Yeah.
The modern version of this is also really fun. It's Mario in the boat. Toads, Yoshis, and Goombas jump out of
They're
like
Goombas. I thought they were Donkey Kong Juniors.
Oh, I thought they were okay. So this is what I thought, and they could be Donkey Kong Juniors.
We also might be playing different modern versions.
Oh, that's true. So this is the one from Game & Watch Gallery 2. And it's like an airship from Super Mario Brothers 3. The whole thing has kind of like a Super Mario Brothers 3 aesthetic. And so Toads and Yoshis jump out most often. Toads have like a predictable speed. They jump out, they deploy their parachute, and they like float down slowly. Yoshis are unpredictable. So they can come out and they will like dive bomb really quickly, and then their parachute deploys. Then
or they can open their parachute right away.
Or they do it very early. Yeah. Or
somewhere in the middle.
And then the other one, which I think were Goombas, is when you are, like about to reach like 50 points and 100 points in every like 50 interval, the game starts to get a little bit more difficult. And I think it's Goombas that'll basically like dive bomb, and they jump out really quickly and they go right to the bottom.
They wait till the last
and
second
barely
to open
deploy.
The
so basically it's like you either catch them immediately or they die.
Yeah.
The other thing that it adds is like there's a cannon on the right that occasionally Toads will float down into, and the cannon, once they land in the cannon, it'll like shoot them back out.
Yeah.
And that falls at a different speed as well. And then Boss Bass, the big fish from Super Mario Brothers 3, is in the water. It's a fun variation. I like this one very much.
Yeah. Well, and if this is also on my list, it is my number 9. So the one of the things that I like about the classic version is that so first of all, depending on like which of the 3 arcs the parachute guys are coming down, that determines their speed. The one furthest on the right has like the fewest frames that they have to fall through, and on the left it has like a bigger arc, so it like they physically fall slower. But then on top of that, there's game mode A and game mode B, and in game mode B, the like so-called hard mode, occasionally the guys on the right will get stuck on the palm tree. Their parachute gets stuck, and they kind of wiggle back and forth a little bit and then fall again. So it's just like one more kind of thing you have to pay attention to. And it is remarkable to me that the games have that level of variety, or that like level of X factor where you're just like, oh my god, now I have to deal with the fact that like this guy could drop it any second from his position far on the right. Okay, so how many do we have so far? 3.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and we have talked about 3 of the ones that are on my list already, Mark. Okay, my number 8. I'm gonna go with number 8. I went with Egg. I found the timing of Egg initially, especially the classic version, to be difficult, to be almost impossible. Just because I had a hard time like sort of tracking where is like the end of the Egg's journeys as they roll down these little chutes. So the gameplay is as follows. There are 4 like hens laying eggs, top left, top right, bottom left, bottom right, and you are a wolf in the middle, and you are catching the eggs in a little basket, and you can be in any one of those positions. And the trick to playing the game is that or the classic version of the game, is that you have to pay attention to the order that the eggs come out in, and just wait there until you hear like the beep that you caught it, and then go to the next one. So it's a lot of like memorizing a pattern as it's happening. So being like, okay, so that was top left, bottom right, top right, bottom right, and like just trying to like execute it in the same order you just saw it. Which is fun and exciting, like the further you go into it. And I love this giant wolf that's in the center of the screen.
Yeah, so the graphics for Egg Classic are unlike any of the other Game & Watch titles that we played. It feels like a modern version, except it doesn't have Mario. Like the wolf sprite, I guess it's not sprite, but like the rendering of the wolf, the rendering of like the hens. It's huge. It's beautiful. It looks like a Disney cartoon. It's really pretty remarkable.
Well, and it probably looks like a Disney cartoon because this is the game that it was Mickey Mouse in its original release, and then when they had to release it without the Disney license anymore, they just put a big wolf in the middle. So like they already, I guess, I don't know if like the hens are exactly the same or what, but like they were obviously already dealing with that aesthetic and just made up this wolf character.
Yeah. I do not like the classic version of this game. I think it looks great. I think that but for me, like the gameplay, it's not very I didn't think it was very fun. And I think it was because in playing all these Game & Watch games together, you kind of get used to the rhythm of them. And like we talked about in Manhole, there's like a familiarity to, okay, the sound means this, the graphic means this. So when something is at this point, there's a little bit of a grace period where, like you can nail it and then move on to the next thing.
Yeah.
Egg does not follow that same pattern. And so in isolation, I don't think it'd be a big deal, but playing it all together,
that's interesting.
It totally threw me off because the rhythm and the timing of Egg on like you were saying, when an egg rolls to the end of the chute, I was expecting there to be a little more like of a buffer period for me to like move over to grab it. And in Egg, they don't do that.
Right. So I ended up playing this game a lot more like Simon or like Flagman, which is not on my list of games that I actually enjoy, of like just seeing the pattern and repeating the pattern back, which I think is how you have to play it.
That makes sense.
Like
that does make sense.
The like twitchy part of it, which is the modern version of the game, which changes the aesthetic entirely. You are Yoshi in the middle, and the eggs that are coming from all directions come so much faster, but Yoshi is able to catch them way sooner in their descent down their various chutes.
Because he uses his tongue like Jar Jar Binks. in the dinner scene.
Like Yoshi, too. Are you trying to pretend that Yoshi doesn't grab things with his tongue? What is this?
I'm trying to paint a picture that everybody on the Nintendo podcast will understand. And
Right, you're
it's
gonna
Jar
talk
Jar
about Star
Binks
Wars.
eating dinner with Shmi Skywalker.
Yeah.
But yes, yeah. And actually, Egg is on my list, but because I liked the modern version so much. Because it does. It plays like I would expect it to. Like you're saying, having Yoshi have a tongue like Jar Jar Binks and being able to grab, and what I love about the modern version is that instead of eggs, they're cookies from Yoshi's Cookie.
Right.
And they're rolling down the 4 conveyor belts. And you have to position Yoshi. There's a point that he can eat them. There's a point to the gameplay mechanic that he can eat them early because you have to eat them before they burn or fall off. So the cookies, the longer they're on the conveyor belt, they will eventually burn. And so Yoshi has to snap them up before that.
There are also weird little meters along the bottom of the screen that I never fully got the hang of, that are like the cookies in different phases of getting done.
Yeah.
And I think when you get them all, then like you get an egg or something, or when you fill up one of the bars, you get an egg. And I don't know what the egg does. Maybe sometimes it's an extra life. Maybe sometimes it's a hazard. But yeah, it's playing the modern version is what made me go back to the classic version, because I was like, how can I enjoy the modern version this much and like not enjoy the classic version? And that's sort of when I discovered it's a little bit different of a game than I was expecting.
Yeah, and so this is a good example of what we were saying earlier, where like the modern version, the classic versions are more than just updated graphics. Like they actually are very different games.
Yeah.
Just was taking the same nugget of an idea, which is like, what if these 4 things rolled down a chute towards you?
Right.
And just kind of like elaborated from there. So for me, the classic version like would not make my list, but I like the modern version. I have to point out that a Chef Mario and a Chef Princess Peach occasionally pop out from bakeries that are like on the side.
Great.
Like they're
that is
very
fun.
cute. So the modern version is enough for me to elevate this into the top 10.
That's good. That's good.
Up next for me is Greenhouse.
Oh yeah, Mark.
And-
Greenhouse is my number 2.
Okay, yeah, and I think that's fitting. Greenhouse is really fun in both iterations.
Yeah.
So the classic one features our man Stanley the Bugman.
Stanley the Bugman
From Donkey Kong 3, spraying bugs on. So he's in a greenhouse. Fittingly, there's no Donkey Kong. Up at the top are these bugs that are flying towards 2 plants.
They're
One's
like
on the left,
worms,
is
right?
on the,
They're like
yeah,
sort
yeah,
of
I guess they
inching their
are
way
worms,
across.
Yeah. One on the right, one on the left, and you have to spray them with bug spray before they make it to one of the plants. And then on the bottom are 2 spiders that are kind of coming at an angle. And same sort of thing. They're moving at a different speed. Also, you can spray the spiders like repeatedly.
You have to spray the spiders
to get them to like go back up their web and disappear. From the modern one is also fun, but I will just say that I think the classic in this case is better. It's faster paced.
Yeah.
And
And more chaotic.
yes, yeah, for sure. And it's a fitting showcase for Stanley the Bugman.
Yeah. It is and I hope I'm not tipping my hand here, but like it is number 2 on my list, but it is the single greatest appearance for Stanley the Bugman. This game is better in the classic version, is better than Donkey Kong 3 on NES
Oh,
and
yeah.
in the arcades. And it's leaps and bounds better than Donkey Kong 3 on the Game & Watch, which is sort of a multiplayer game, but it's either impossible to play or spammable and impossible to lose.
Well, I don't know that we need to talk that much trash about Donkey Kong.
All right, we'll get to it. But no, I just think that this is the best Stanley the Bugman has. It's so much fun to play this. I just love this game.
Yeah, I mean, it's Donkey Kong 3, but making
right.
sense.
Yeah.
Because, like, Donkey Kong 3 had to have Donkey Kong in it. Nobody's going to play a game called Stanley the Bugman. Clearly, because they called this one Greenhouse.
Right.
But this is what Donkey Kong 3 should have been. It should just been Stanley the Bugman. Should just been Greenhouse.
One of the things that I absolutely adore about Greenhouse is it gives you such in a way that not all these Game & Watch games do, it makes you make split second decisions, like looking at the entire screen, which is it's a dual screen game if you were playing it on original hardware, and like really taking the lay of the land and being like, do I have enough time to drive this spider all the way back, or do I just need to hit him back once so I can get back up there and get those worms as they're inching towards the flowers? But it also lets you, if you want to play more riskily, the closer the worms are to the flowers, the more points they're worth when you gas them. Because you can gas them right when they appear, and then they're worth 1 point, or if they're right next to the flower, they're worth 3. So like, it's an sort of unbelievable amount of strategy that this tiny little game offers, just in the greenhouse experience.
And the modern version is fun too. It's not my favorite though. So in the modern version, you play as Yoshi protecting plants.
Stanley Erasure.
By spitting watermelon seeds.
Mm-hmm.
The top screen is Flying Shy Guys, which is funny and cute. And Flying Shy Guys, for whatever reason, are featured
Mark
a lot
them,
in
right?
the modern version of Game & Watch games. And then the bottom screen are monkeys.
Right. Well, the monkeys from like Yoshi's Island.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you don't drive them back the same way that Stanley drives the spiders back on the bottom screen. You have to wait for them to like clear this wall.
Mm-hmm.
So like they have 3 different like positions, and you can only get them when they're in the 3rd position. So it is similar to the spiders in that like you have to spend very specific times down there to attack them, but it is different in that you can't like go down there and like spam them back away or anything.
Right.
And you can collect watermelons as you go, and when you get enough of them, then Yoshi breathes fire for a little bit. And I think the only utility for breathing fire is that you can kill the monkeys at any time.
Yeah, I think so as well. Something that Jar Jar Binks does not do, by the way. Eat watermelon and
No, I mean
fire.
that's truer words, Mark.
But so I think I got impatient with the modern version because it just takes a while to get going, and I think maybe they're trying to like acclimate you to it, because there are a couple of the modern versions here where I'm like, oh, I'm glad that there was this warm-up period because it took me a while to understand what was going on.
Yeah.
This one like I did not have that problem, and so I got impatient like waiting for the game to begin. Because even though you're playing the tutorial for 30 seconds, that's like a long 30 seconds.
Yeah.
I'm curious, Patrick, in general, when you're playing the Game & Watch Gallery games, they all present the modern versions first and the classic versions second in your options. That's how I ended up approaching most of these.
Oh, I did the exact opposite.
Which makes way more sense.
Yeah. I wanted to see what the games were and then see what the riff on them was.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that that is not how Nintendo chose to present them.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I think they really are trying to, and again, it's so funny that like even the modern versions are now 20 years old. But you know, they were trying to sell these as games for Game Boy or for Game Boy Advance, and so like they lead with that graphical capability.
Yeah, that's a good point, because it's probably like at that time, like the Game & Watch Gallery games, I'm sure there were people who had a strong fondness for them.
Totally.
But they probably had not like gone over the hump to being like retro in a fun way. They were just like old.
They're just old. Yeah. I mean, I do wonder if the first Game & Watch Gallery started with them like remaking Game & Watch games in these modern engines and with these modern amenities, and then we're like, oh, you know what, we should throw the classic ones in there too. You know, if that was like an afterthought, even though that's largely why I was playing these things. Greenhouse, I love Greenhouse. Mark, thank you for bringing it up. Next on my list, number 7, I got Mario Bros on here. Mario and Luigi working at a bottling factory. It's unclear exactly where they're working. Wait. Yeah, Mario's on the right, Luigi's on the left, and the gameplay is as simple as they travel up and down on these like conveyor belts, passing packages back to each other as they like sort of zigzag back and forth, and they complete them and put them onto a truck, and it goes away.
Yeah, I love this one. This could arguably be my number 1.
I love it.
Mark. In my mind when I was playing this, I was like, oh, it's like Amazon Warehouse Workers, the game, right? They're like,
you could pause and take a bathroom break though.
The this is one actually where I appreciated that the game is slow to get going
Yeah.
because it took me a second to wrap my head around how this controls, because it is a rare Game & Watch game where one person is controlling two characters
Yes.
using the simple controls of Game & Watch. And so you can use the D-pad to control Luigi on the left, and by control you have the option of having him go up a level or down a level.
Yeah.
And then Mario on the right is controlled with the A or B buttons. And same thing. A brings him up, B brings him down.
Right. And if you are playing this on original hardware, they both just have like up and down clickers. Luigi's obviously on the left, Mario's on the right.
And so you're passing like the packages back and forth, and as it goes through the conveyor belt, it gets like more and more finished. And then at the top, if Luigi successfully gets it, then he tosses it onto a truck. And once the truck is filled up, Wario drives it away.
Yeah.
But then
Wario
Bowser,
in the modern version.
Yeah. Sorry. Yes. Just talking about the modern version. And Bowser is at the top, just like pouting, banging his feet, like.
I mean, every now and then he will, like later when like after it's like 200 or 300 points, something like that, he starts throwing tantrums that reverse the direction of the conveyor belts, and you have to have
use
either
the levers.
Yeah, either Mario or Luigi just has to hit a lever, and for Mario, I think it's at the top, and Luigi it's at the bottom. So just whoever is closest to it to like flip that switch so you can keep everything going.
And so this one was very fun for me because you really had to like juggle multiple things at the same time. You had to keep track of where the two characters were, where the packages were on the conveyor belt. Like it was all just a lot of fun. I thought the classic one had a lot of personality as well. Like if a package it's the same sort of thing, except you're working in more of
I think it is expressly a bottling factory in the original. Not that you see bottles, but like it's just a box that gets more completed as it goes.
Exactly. But if a package gets dropped, a supervisor comes out and like yells at you. And that's just another one of those fail states that has like a ton of personality in the original game and feels for whatever reason like a worker blowing off steam, where it's like
totally,
like it has that like humor to it that is in the Nintendo spirit, but very different from like the modern Mario versions of these games. It feels more like blue collar, more working man.
Yeah, and feels like a real like Looney Tunes cartoon.
Yeah.
Or it's
like
just,
Fred Flintstone's boss of the quarry.
Totally, yes.
Like, yeah.
Mr. Slate.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean what 100%. I think the sort of quiet, subtle storytelling of the game is very good and very compelling. Mark, this is one that in its original hardware is like the book dual screen, where like it's the horizontal instead of vertical opening. And so the like divide between them is where it like gets the next layer of thing, which is just another like when you just like think about, because I really like trying to imagine the original hardware when playing these things, and it's cool to like use that space as like a transformative thing, and it also makes it seem like the Mario and Luigi are more separated, which is one of the like fun tricks that the game makes you engage in. Is like, okay, now control Mario, now control Luigi, now control Mario.
The next one on my list is Donkey Kong Jr.
Yes.
This is one that I really, really, really liked the modern version, and the classic was not as fun as the modern version, but still really good.
Mark, we may not be friends. Donkey Kong Jr. is my number one. It is my favorite Game & Watch game because of the classic version.
Oh, interesting.
I find, well, you talk about the modern version, then I'll talk about the classic.
So,
because I think there's a lot to like in this in general.
Yeah, I think so too. So, the basic gameplay is, like a simplified version of the Donkey Kong Jr. like arcade game or NES port.
game, with the one extra wrinkle of you always need to get, or in the modern version you have to like get the key.
Yeah.
And take it to Donkey Kong's cage. In the classic version, the key is like swinging in front of him, and you just need to jump when it is in the right place.
Yeah,
you can grab it and then slam it into.
But it's the same sort of like jump up, grab a vine, You know, like hop down. You can move quickly between the vines. One thing that I thought was really cool in the modern version that you couldn't really do in the classic version is like the game builds, right? There's a first screen that you complete, and then
Yeah.
it moves on to like a second screen, and like it gets more challenging. Then this third screen, it gets more challenging. That is not true to how Game and Watch works,
Right.
but it is fun.
We'll see this again in Donkey Kong as well. But
So I like this a lot. I thought the modern version was a lot of fun. So the classic version, which I will let you speak to because you liked it a lot, but for me, I felt like the pacing was off. Like the enemies swarmed a little too quickly for my taste.
Yeah.
This is one where I liked the slower warm up period of the modern version. Also, one thing that this is not like a critique of the classic one, just something that I thought was really interesting for Game & Watch is that Donkey Kong Jr. feels like he has more dynamic motion than you see in a lot of other Game & Watch games.
Yeah.
Like, it takes a little bit of getting used to, but there's like a little bit of almost like where Donkey Kong Jr. moves diagonally.
Yes.
In like when he's jumping.
Yeah.
And which is very unusual for Game & Watch.
Yeah. Well, so Donkey Kong Jr. for me, the classic version was one where I loved the sort of slow discovery of the places you were safe from various of the enemies, and like things that you had to like rush to, or spaces to avoid, or ways to score extra points by like if you can kill one of the little like chompy guys on the top row, a bird, and a chompy guy on the bottom row with one fruit by knocking it down and hitting all three in that lineup, you score like a ton of points. And like if you are on the vine that like separates the two levels, the chompy guys can't get you, they go past you, but the birds will get you, so you have to like, you know, basically make a beeline to that, hope to God there's not a bird there, and then just like keep going. There's, I don't know, there was something so like hypnotic, and it is the same screen over and over again. Just gets like swarming with more enemies, but there's kind of nothing I've found as rewarding in playing the rest of these Game & Watch games as being in the bottom row and sort of dancing back and forth on the ground between these chompy guys, jumping up into the air to grab a vine, moving like one space, like because I'm in between two birds, right? Moving over one space, dropping back down, letting the bird pass, jumping back up. Like, I don't know, when I am playing Donkey Kong Jr. well, I feel like I'm seeing through the Matrix. Like it feels so good to me. I really, really love classic Donkey Kong Jr.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason it made the list for both of us.
Yeah.
It's a very good one. It's a really good game in both iterations.
Also great like personality in the Donkey Kong Jr. like we keep saying sprite, but we don't know what the word is.
Yeah.
The graphic for him, like he looks distinct. He has a lot of character. I like the Donkey Kong that's like in a cage in the top, and there's something like truly liberating about like getting rid of the fourth like chunk of cage and like setting him free. It just feels good. I also like the way that like every time you do that, you get a bunch of points. And I don't really know how it's calculated or how many points you get each time. But there's something very rewarding about, you know, you're just bouncing, you know, guys in firemen, and you get 1 point each time they hit your thing. You're like, no, I'm going to slam this key in and get 20 points.
Also, they're like in something like Fire, there's no end state really. It just goes on forever.
Yeah.
But with Donkey Kong Jr., once you set Donkey Kong free, the game just continues to loop. Like it doesn't like end or anything. But
you feel like you accomplished something.
Yes, totally. And so it's like, oh, okay. So even if I die on this next attempt, that's fine because I like did it.
This is great, Mark. I'm so happy we both really like this game. We have reached the point now where we decided that we were going to take a little break from talking about games that we like to sort of trash talk some games that we had a problem with. Well, I mean, you know, look, we're pretty positive guys. We're probably not going to dwell on it too much. But what Game & Watch games did you not have fun or have a hard time wrapping your head around or whatever?
I didn't really like Oil Panic that much.
Oil Panic feels like there's too much. I liked it at first, and then was like, oh, now I just got to like, I just would get mad at like tossing the oil out the window and like the guy wouldn't be there.
Yeah, I just thought it was slow and boring. And in the classic version and the modern version. So essentially, just real quick, you're in the classic version, you're in a car shop. you're controlling one dude upstairs catching oil that's dripping from the ceiling in a bucket.
Right, and the bucket can hold 3 drops of oil.
And then there's somebody outside, and so your objective is to catch the oil, and then before your bucket overflows, you have to hand it off to another guy who's on a level below you, and
right,
is
and
moving
he's like
back and
moving
forth.
back and forth. Yeah.
And so
you can only get him when he's on the extreme left or the extreme right.
And so you're trying to synchronize the dumping of your oil into his bucket when he is on the extreme left or the extreme right. Because if he is not there and you dump the oil, it lands on a woman or a man who are outside, like filling their car up with oil.
Right.
Which I
Funny.
like.
That's
it's
funny.
It's funny. Again, it's one of those like expressive fail states that they did really well. The modern version is like Bowser on top of a castle dropping fire or oil from the top of the castle tower. Mario catches it. Yoshi's outside protecting Luigi and DK.
Like Jar Jar Binks.
It's just very notably, as he does in episode 1. It's just very slow. I think it's because there is so much like going on.
Yeah, there's
that
too
they
much going on, I
wanted you
think.
to like have a chance to figure it out, but like I did not care for Oil Panic.
So I do have some slower games on my list still, but yeah, the slowness of this one bugged me in a way that I can't really articulate. But I think you've done a pretty good job. Mark, did you play Lion at all?
No.
So Lion is you control two Mr. Game and Watches on either side of a lion's cage, and you can be in one of 3 positions, top, middle, or bottom. And there are lions that appear in the cage, and 2 of them, one jumps out to the left, the other jumps out to the right, and they like kind of move around and take turns either like attacking or not attacking. Sometimes it's a fake out. And it is. First of all, the sound in this one is the worst sound I've heard. There are a lot of these beeps that get annoying if you're not, don't play it when someone else is in the room. But this is just one where I found the gameplay to be like kind of too limited and like just not fun enough. I felt like I could always keep up with it, and maybe that was like to its detriment. That it felt like it was supposed to be like a real Twitch test of my reflexes, but the Lion Tamers for me were just always ahead of the lions.
So I have 2 that I wouldn't say that I hated so much as just like completely did not understand, and so like enjoyed the 30 seconds that I was baffled and then failed and then never really attempted again.
Yeah.
And that is boxing and chef.
Yeah, so boxing, totally agree. Could not wrap my head around boxing. The person who owned the Game & Watch Gallery cartridge before I got it seemingly loved boxing. Has 5 stars in all versions of boxing. I don't get it.
I don't get it either. The modern version is really funny because you're like one side, one opponent is a wiggler, like the kind of
caterpillar guy.
caterpillar guys from Super Mario World. The other one is Luigi. They're boxing each other. This is inherently funny. But I could not for the life of me figure out, am I Wiggler or am I Luigi? Because no matter what buttons I pressed, it seemed like neither character was doing what I would expect them to do. I had no idea what was going on.
Yeah, and the classic version is just as baffling. The classic version to me almost feels like other LCD games of the era. Like it feels like the Tiger Electronics Double Dragon, and I know it's got to be better than that because it's just got to be. But that's it. It felt the most like unremarkable to me of all of the games that we played.
And then Chef, I found the modern version. I think the classic version like is clear.
Yeah,
you know, you're just kind of juggling this food, not wanting it to hit the ground, and
every now and then the cat stab something with a fork, so you have to wait and get it later.
The modern version, I don't know. I don't know what's going on here.
Yeah, you're like cooking the food and you don't want it to burn, and like Yoshi has to eat it. I don't know. It is confusing.
Yeah. And then the other one I wanted to talk about, not because I disliked it, I actually thought it was pretty fun, but it's not on my list, is Vermin.
Okay, yeah. I like Vermin. It is also not on my top 10.
Very bleak. Both versions. Like,
yes.
The modern version, you're a pink Yoshi protecting eggs from flying Shy Guys, flying green Yoshi, seemingly.
Yeah, I thought they were like Koopas or something. Yeah, I wasn't sure.
Maybe they
Yeah.
are. I thought they were.
Like paratroopers.
Yeah, yeah. And then Boo's will show up occasionally, but they're like attacking Yoshi eggs and just like
Yeah,
destroying
super
them.
bleak.
Really bleak. I feel like the classic version is even more bleak. Did you ever read Lenigan versus the Ants?
No.
Okay.
No, what is
It's
this?
this like we read it in like 8th grade or 7th grade. It's a short story um about like a rancher in Brazil who's warned that like us like a herd of these like just ants that are just destroying everything in their path are coming towards his like ranch. And so
Yeah.
he like sets everything up that he can, like moats of fire, but it's a real like man versus nature thing because the ants just like keep coming.
Right.
And that's how I felt about Vermin, because you're just this dude with 2 hammers
Yeah.
standing there, and there are just moles, like incessant, like they will not stop coming.
Yeah.
And it felt like he was like protecting his land and his family.
Smack,
Just like,
smack, Yeah, it's Vermin is a really interesting one in that like you're right there, you do reach this point of like utter helplessness early on, that like the difficulty ramps up, but like the actual gameplay is you have a hammer in each hand and you have like one of 3 positions that you stand in, and the moles come on 5 different tracks, and so depending on where you are you'll automatically hit to the left and to the right of you. Then you just need to make sure that you are in the right space to whack the mole wherever it is. And they just don't stop. And there are multiples of them coming at you at once.
and there's something like terrifying. It's like
Yes,
it's
it's like
Jaws
Tremors.
a little. Yes, yeah, Tremors. Exactly. Another movie that Jar Jar Binks was famously not in. But you see the ground like moving as the moles like make their way towards
Yes.
you. But in this game, unlike other games, you have to hit the moles at the cusp
Yes.
of like the entrance to the hole, and so you have to wait for them to like
Yes.
be right there. You cannot like strike beforehand. It's I thought it was fun, but not one of my top 10.
Yeah. And I think not on my top 10 because it feels unduly stressful.
Yeah.
Like it feels like you are dealing with a horde of something in a way that the rest of these games don't. Just sort of, I think last games I wanted to call out here for me, Flagman and Judge. I find both these games to be kind of boring. I know I kind of likened Egg to Flagman, but so Flagman is almost exactly a Simon clone in one mode, where it does like a 2 move and you have to like repeat those 2 moves just by pushing those buttons again, and each move comes with a different sound, so like when you get a good one going it starts to feel like a melody that you're repeating back to it, but ultimately it's just Simon, and Simon is colorful and like tactile, so like less good than Simon, so like how good can that possibly be? And then the B mode, it just tells you which button to push and then you push it, and then the like interval gets shorter and shorter as you go, which isn't really fun. The game tells you to push a button and then you push the button. It feels like a science experiment more than anything else.
I mean, that's BioShock, right?
Yeah, no, you're right. And then Judge is a weird, like you pick numbers or numbers are assigned to you. I only played Judge for a little bit and was like, I'm not interested.
I don't even. I did not play Judge as part of this. I didn't unlock it in a way that it had to be unlocked. I cannot remember from our episode last week what Judge actually is.
It's like a gambling thing. If you have the higher number, you attack. If you have the lower number,
that's
you
right.
defend.
That's right.
And
That's
so
right.
you
It's
just
kind
have
of like it's almost like rock paper scissors type thing.
kinda, yeah. And it's just I didn't find it to be fun. And then should we get back to games that we liked?
Yes. So we are closing the book.
Closing the book on games we were talking trash
that
about.
stuff.
Mark, I have 3 games left.
I have. Let's see. One. I have something like that.
Okay.
2 or 3.
Yeah. I'll go next. So I've got a very slow one on my list next. But it is a game that slow. I loved the meditative. There were some times when I was playing this game that I would put it down and wait for the game to
slow.
advance. I'm talking about Mario Cement Factory.
Interesting.
Mario Cement Factory, in typical Game & Watch fashion, has like 4 different stations: top left, top right, bottom left, bottom right. and there are these funnels that fill with cement from trucks. And so the top row fills first, and it gets up to 3 things full of cement, and you flip a switch to move it down to the bottom row, and that can also hold 3, and then you can move that down to the trucks below, and then you start scoring points. And the way that you traverse these 4 platforms is with this set of elevators. On the left, the elevators on the left just keep going down. The elevators on the right keep going up. And if you misstep on the elevators, that's how you die. Also, you score a miss by overfilling one of the funnels. This happens incredibly slowly, especially early on. But I found something so rewarding in like juggling those things. And it's one of those where like you are sort of making your own challenge of like, when do you decide to empty a top funnel and like move down to the second funnel, and you're balancing these like risk reward things of like, if this one only has 2 in it right now, and I could make it a little bit easier for me by emptying those 2 down into the thing below, or I could wait till it fills up to 3 so that I have to make fewer trips on these elevators. And I just really enjoyed it. I didn't play the modern version. I don't know what it's like.
Oh, okay. So the modern version is Mario's riding the elevators up and down to process cookie dough.
Okay.
And so on the Yoshi's on the left, and he eats the cookies, and then Toad is on the right at the bottom, and he's boxing the cookies
That's
up.
cute.
And occasionally on the second level of like the process, a boo will come into the machine, and so you have to
The ghost
clear
in the machine.
you have to clear the boo out. Because otherwise, like, he like stops up the works. So, I liked this game, but it was too slow for me.
Yeah.
I do think it's like Oil Panic improved. Like it is very similar to Oil Panic,
I
but
get
it's
that.
way more fun than Oil Panic is. But it is still like it was too slow for me.
This is one that I like to play while watching a TV show.
Sure, make a sandwich.
Yeah.
Put your feet up.
No. I did say that I could put it down frequently while playing, but like if you have something else going on, because the times when you are like, you know, hustling to like get to the things and release them all on time and not fall in the elevators can be truly exhilarating. It is just weird how much time sort of elapses between those exhilarating moments.
Yeah, it's kind of like real work where you have like nothing to do for a long time,
And then a
like
ton.
a crush of stuff.
Yeah.
And then you're like back to just riding the elevators up and down
Yeah.
for a little bit. Good pick. Next on my list is Helmet.
Helmet. Okay, not on my list.
So the modern version of this was more fun to me than the classic version. The classic version is you're moving on the left-hand side of the screen is like this multi-story building, presumably a construction site, and you're moving from the left to right to a shed, and tools are falling from the sky, and so you earn points for every tool that lands on the ground, and you don't get hit by it. But the kind of the trick to
Do
it
you
is
also get points by going into
you
the shed?
do if you make it to the shed, because
that's all I ever did is just like get to the shed as many times as possible.
So the shed door like opens and closes, and you can only advance if the shed door is open. And then going into the shed moves the player back to the left-hand side to the building, and you just kind of like repeat.
Start again. Yeah.
So
Live, die, repeat.
that one I liked. The modern version I thought was really fun. So in this one, you play as Toad. There's as Mario. There's a castle on the left, presumably one of Princess Peach's many castles. On the right is a mushroom house, and then Yoshi with wings is dropping hammers and mines on Mario. And so Mario
seems like that should be a lock of 2.
So in this instance, you earn points by stepping on a P button that's on the ground, and then you collect the coins that appear. But the coins are only there for a limited amount of time. And if you are just out there collecting coins, your pockets fill up, and so you start slowing down. So it makes it harder to advance. And so when the mushroom house door is open or the castle door is open, you can go through either one. Then when you go there, you like bank the coins, and your speed returns to normal.
Yeah.
And so, but when you do that, the coins on the screen reset. So if you have like 3 coins on the screen, you get 1, then you like move to the mushroom house, the
those other
coins
coins go away.
disappear, but then you also travel to the other side.
Right.
So you're coming out of the castle, and so it's just like it is enough complications to
Yeah.
make it like more interesting. And takes like a little bit to figure out like, oh, in this one, like I don't get points for avoiding the things that are falling. That's table stakes. I get points by like earning and banking the coins.
Yeah.
And then having Mario like slow down if he's carrying too many coins. I just
That's
like
smart.
I like the different
I like that
layers
a
to
lot.
it. So the classic version I thought was fine and fun, but the modern version I thought was really good.
I don't think I messed around with the modern version of that one. I think I just played the classic, and like you said, thought it was fine, but didn't really revisit it. Good pick, Mark. I have 2 left. I'm gonna go with Rain Shower.
Ooh, this is my last one. So this is a good one for us to talk about. I really liked Rain Shower a lot.
So Rain Shower, this is another one that in the original hardware is the sort of like book version of like the horizontal dual screen. And in Rain Shower, you are a man who is hanging up his laundry to dry just as a storm approaches. And the like implied story here is so effective. And like they actually like animate. There are no clouds on the screen when you start, and the clouds like come in.
It's truly ominous. It's
Yeah.
very good.
And so you have to move the clothesline so that your clothes are not in the path of raindrops that are falling. A super simple premise. This is another one that actually feels a little bit slow, but because you are juggling what would be the action on 2 screens, even though it's presented on one in the gallery, it is a lot to juggle at once, which is super cool and super fun. But even more fun for me, at any rate, is in the B version of the classic mode. There are crows on either side that will tug your laundry line in one direction or the other. So you have to like keep making corrections for what they're messing up.
That's fun.
And truly, the story in this one is so great. Like the house looks like big and imposing. Like it seems like a country house somewhere. And when you mess up and your clothes get wet, the guy is so disappointed, and he seemingly throws them away. Like he's so mad that his clothes get wet. And then the modern version. Do you want to speak to the modern version a little, Mark?
Sure. So Bowser is in a tree and he's throwing fruit, I think, down.
Yeah, maybe. Or
and so Mario is moving the clothesline to prevent Toad or Donkey Kong Jr. from being hit. Toad is on like the upper one on the left-hand side of the screen, and he is like clothespinned to the line,
which
it's
is adorable.
Really cute.
Yeah.
And then on the right-hand side, on the bottom line, is DK Jr. It's just another one that's, for me, like both versions were really effective. I liked classic a little bit more only because it got more difficult faster.
Yeah. Well, and starts more difficult too.
Yeah.
That you have on like each side like 3 different things that you want not to get wet. So 6 total. Whereas the modern version starts with just 2. And if you get deep enough, you get like another character on. I think the first one you get is on the left side. And so like they add more characters that you want not to get hit by Bowser's fruits or bombs or whatever they are. But yeah, the classic Rain Shower has them all in there from the get-go.
And I think it's the classic version. Maybe it's both of them actually, but like there's also like eaves of like a barn or something like on the right and the left.
Yes.
And so occasionally, you can maneuver the clothing to be under the eave, and so like the rain or the rain will hit the roof, and so it doesn't. It's just like another like thing that like doesn't really make it more difficult. It helps a little bit, but I guess in all of these, I am constantly amazed at, I think of Game & Watch as being Ball, right? I think of it as being these very simple things, and that is not always the case. A lot of the later ones have like a ton of personality that really shine through, and I feel like Rain Shower is a good example of that.
And then one more thing that I like about Rain Shower, especially in the classic mode, is that we're talking about all of these games where like the premise is you don't want to drop someone or get hit in the head with a wrench, or like there's some sort of like disaster or bodily harm that you are preventing. In this one, you're just trying to make sure your clothes dry.
You're just
it's
a
so
person
wholesome.
who
I
wants
love it.
Dry clothes.
You just
relatable.
want dry clothes. Which I guess then brings me to my final, unless you have
That's
one
right.
more, Mark?
No, Rain Shower was it for me.
My final one is Donkey Kong, which I thought was great. I liked both the the classic version and the modern version. I do think in the gallery the classic version suffers a little bit from like jamming the top screen into just like a tiny little like faked top screen, and you can push a button to like toggle to make it the main one. But it's still like when you get to the top is just like there's not enough happening there. But in the modern version, it feels an awful lot like regular Donkey Kong. And it is another one like Donkey Kong Jr. That will like cycle through three different forms of like three different levels, and each one plays a little bit differently, and you have to like take different things into consideration when trying to reach the top. It for me feels like a very competent approximation of Donkey Kong.
Yeah. And maybe that's why it didn't make my list, because I am not the biggest Donkey Kong booster. It's just
Yeah,
a
sure.
game that like has never really done anything for me. And so I agree with you that it is a very like it's a fine version of Donkey Kong.
Okay, so total we have got 11 games on here, right?
Yep.
So we were only going to rank the top 10, but in ranking 10 of 11, we are sort of subconsciously ranking it an 11th.
That's right. It's unavoidable.
It is unavoidable. Mark, do you have any? So our list, just to review, let's go back and forth. The first entry we have here is Fire,
Followed by Manhole,
then Parachute,
then Egg,
then Greenhouse,
Mario Brothers,
Donkey Kong Jr.,
Mario Cement Factory,
Helmet,
Rain Shower,
and Donkey Kong. Do you have any like what? Do you have like a bottom of the list here for you?
For me personally, Mario Cement Factory or Donkey Kong would be towards
Not
the
on
bottom
Mark's
of the
list.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't think for me personally that Mario Cement Factory is a bottom tier. I can agree that Donkey Kong is flawed in some ways, especially in the classic version. I am okay leaving Donkey Kong at our number 11.
Okay.
Other ones that I think are simple or like I feel like there's a little bit of a divide in this list between games that are very simple and games that are more like kind of complex.
Totally.
And a more complicated game doesn't make for a better game necessarily. Although I will probably push for one of the more complicated games to be our number one. I think some of the like simpler games like Fire, Manhole, Parachute, and Egg sort of belong nearish the bottom.
I 100% agree with that. And I would say, even though I enjoyed it, I would put Helmet probably like in that group as well.
Okay, yeah, I agree with that.
So yeah, I like all of these games. Clearly, they made
Yeah,
it onto
me
our
too.
list. But I do think that there is something to like standing up against some of these other ones that just have more to them. Like it's hard to compete,
Yeah.
with Greenhouse, for example. The perfect Stanley the Bugman showcase.
Yeah, I agree. Well, and also like Mario Brothers and Rain Shower and Donkey Kong Jr. Like to me, those are the top four. I don't know in what order.
Yeah, yeah.
But
I mean, I would say Helmet is probably okay. This is how I would do it.
yeah,
Donkey Kong at the bottom.
right.
Just above it is Egg, and just above that would be Helmet, followed by.
Well, so hold on. I think this is a great time to jump in and put Mario Cement Factory.
Okay.
A game that I think is good, but perhaps suffers from its slowness. So so Egg at now that I'm adding numbers, it's messing everything up.
But you know what? I would say, like, I would argue that even though Mario Cement Factory was not on my list and Manhole was, like, Manhole's not
Yeah, okay.
amazing. Like, I
agree with
could
that.
see the argument for putting Manhole below Mario Cement Factory.
But above Helmet.
I think so.
Okay. So the bottom of the list Just cleaning this up as we go.
Well, actually, maybe not, because I think I liked the modern version of Helmet more than I liked either version of Manhole.
Yeah, I'll agree with that. So let's put Helmet above Manhole. Okay. So that's not right, Patrick. It's tough to navigate a list and talk in real time. Okay. So at number 11 we've got Donkey Kong. 10 is Egg. And then 9 is Manhole, 8 is Helmet, and then I think 7 is Mario Cement Factory.
Yeah,
I feel right to you.
So.
Okay.
But then I think probably Fire and Parachute.
Which do you prefer of those?
I think I prefer. I mean, they are very similar games.
They're very similar games. You're catching falling people in both of them.
I think maybe Parachute, but I could really be swayed either way.
I think I like Fire better.
Okay.
It's higher on my list. And I think it's just because the simplicity of the game, like of the concept and the theme of the game is so clear and it's so obvious and so like, I don't know, it's like elemental, right? Like you have to imagine like a New York City that doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, that's
and,
true.
You know,
that's true.
It's like that scene in the first Spider-Man movie, right, where like he's rescuing a baby from a burning building, and like I don't know, it all feels like so just like quintessential high stakes.
It
drama.
does. There is something very evocative about it. Like for like as a kid, I always imagined myself in the scenario where you're gonna have to like jump off into one of those big trampolines, and I assume that is a real thing that is still done, used to be done. I don't really know.
I mean, there's literally no way to know. Okay, which means then that in our top 4 we have to deal with Greenhouse, Mario Bros, Donkey Kong Jr., and Rain Shower.
For me, and I know that this was your number 1 pick, Donkey Kong Jr. would probably be here on my list.
At number 4.
I think so. I really I thought Donkey Kong Jr. was really fun, but I also felt like it's just a not as good version of Donkey Kong Jr.
Oh man, I almost think it's better than Donkey Kong Jr.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's maybe better than the NES / arcade game. But I can see. Look, we're in the pantheon, the top 4 here, right? Like we're saying these are all good Game & Watch games that we like to play. For my money, I feel like it's about the same as Mario Bros. For me. But I could go either way on that.
This is a little tough because
Mario Brothers is your number 1.
Yeah, I did really really like Mario Brothers, but I actually think that there's one on here that I like more than all of these. I'm trying to actually here potential compromise.
Yeah.
I think Rain Shower goes next. I like Rain Shower,
okay,
but I think of the top 4, 4th is probably like as high as it should go.
That's I will agree with that. I think that's a good compromise. Rain Shower can be next. The first time I played Rain Shower, I was like, oh my god, Game & Watch games can be amazing.
I think it's delightful. This is not dumping on Rain Shower at all. I think it's a great, but I just think I like the other ones better.
Yeah, sure. So then you think, I think this is where you're headed, and I might agree.
Okay.
Is 3rd place Donkey Kong Jr., 2nd place Mario Bros., 1st place Greenhouse?
Yeah, and I if Donkey Kong Jr. goes above Mario Brothers, I don't really feel that strongly about it.
Yeah, I mean, I would if it were just my list. But knowing that it is your number 1 and you didn't even rank others, that makes me think it can go above Donkey Kong Jr. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. I think I have my Look, what happened here is that I saw Greenhouse and I'm like, oh yeah, Greenhouse should be number 1 on this list. And so anything below it at this point, I'm like, doesn't matter. I'm willing to die for Greenhouse.
Yeah.
And Mario Brothers can do whatever Mario Brothers is going to do. You know what I'm saying?
Look, we're putting Mario Bros. At number 2 and Donkey Kong Jr. at number 3 because I agree with you. This is a hill I will die on. Greenhouse is a great game.
It's a great game. And I feel like it's Nintendo being like, hey, everyone, we really messed up with Donkey Kong 3.
Yeah. Hey, guys.
We tried to shoehorn Donkey Kong 3 into a game that should have been a Stanley the Bugman showcase, and it suffered for it. People knew this was not a Donkey Kong game. What is Donkey Kong doing in this greenhouse? What are the proportions? What is going on here?
None of it makes any sense. Let's take the things that we know worked, which are obviously Stanley the Bugman. And look, we were talking a lot about like the sort of like foundational, like dramatic tableaus that these things put forth, and the exterminator with like the sort of hand pump like fumigation thing
totally
is so, I mean, it feels like a Tom and Jerry cartoon. And actually on that note, the like alarm, because these games are all watches as well, the like little alarm that goes off is a cat being stung by a bee. Like there's a cat that like sits on the bottom screen and a bee that can like come in and like sting him, and he like jumps up.
Oh, that's fun.
So the game's super cool. It's super cute. It has a ton of personality. I do begrudge the modern version for its Stanley erasure, but I get it. We didn't talk at all about Donkey Kong Country or Donkey Kong 3.
Did we not?
We did not talk about
Oh my gosh, that was on my list.
That's on your list.
That was on my list. It's fine that it's not in our top 11.
Yeah.
Because I did think that both were like too complicated.
Yeah.
The modern version, so it is not Donkey Kong 3 as
No.
you know it. It is basically
It's like a head-to-head competitive
yeah, so
game.
but it is the second Game & Watch game that includes Stanley the Bugman.
Yeah.
So Donkey Kong's on the left, Stanley the Bugman is on the right. You're using pesticide to push bugs into each other. And it has an interesting timing dynamic because you have to like fill your bucket of pesticide.
Right. To shoot the pesticide across.
Yeah.
And then choose whether to shoot from the top, middle, or bottom to knock the bugs, when the bugs themselves also like traverse up and down.
Right. And if you shoot like 2 pumps, it could in theory move the bug 2 notches.
Yeah.
The modern version I think is too complicated.
I agree with this.
But I
more
still
Stanley erasure.
Yeah,
by the
so
way.
here's Donkey
Strike
Kong.
one.
Donkey Kong makes the cut.
Yeah.
Which fitting for Donkey Kong 3. But Mario is the other character. You're facing off in like a boo house, and if you turn your back, like you have to turn your back on the boo to fill your tank, so he'll move more towards you. But then if he reaches you, you die. Also, but you're shooting bubbles at each other to push the boo. Also, there's a fireball on screen closer to the enemy. There's just like a lot going on. It feels more like what Donkey Kong 3 should have been.
Sure.
But yeah. So it was on my list. Forgot to talk about it. Clearly, like not that high on my list.
Donkey Kong 3 for me, in the classic version, I discovered that if you just stand in the middle, fill your bug spray thing, fire off 3 shots, fill your bug spray thing, never leave the middle row, and just indiscriminately fire like that, you win.
Oh, you can cheese it.
You can cheese it.
Oh,
I scored over 1,000 points that way. 1,000, because I wanted those stars. I wanted to unlock some more
Right,
games.
yeah. Oh, that's so funny. Oh, if only like the internet existed, you could have like a YouTube channel. Or sorry, like
The internet does exist.
only if the internet existed back
Sure,
when
in
Donkey Kong
1983.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You could have a YouTube channel all about how to like beat the boss on Donkey Kong 3 Game & Watch.
I mean, it's just it was disappointing to me because that was like it's the least active way to play the game.
Right, what's the point?
Yeah, but it's the most effective way to play it too. Where it's just like,
yeah.
oh, okay, the only way to win is not to play. Anyway, so yeah, I really after that I was like, oh, forget this game. I'm writing it off entirely.
Yeah.
But it would have been cool, I think, to play it because it was one of those games that had the like 2 controllers in it and is multiplayer.
I do think it'd be fun multiplayer. Is Super Mario Brothers or not? Is Mario Brothers
no
multiplayer?
It is not.
Which actually makes sense because I don't think it would be that fun.
It wouldn't be that hard
if you were just controlling one of them.
I mean, you could always get like 2 people crowded around one Game & Watch, like
That's true.
each controller.
That's
one
right.
character.
In any of these,
Yeah.
can be
Any game can be
multiplayer.
2-player, Mark. Except no, I guess Ball you even move left and right. There is no game with a single button input, as far as I know. All right. Let's run through our whole list from bottom to top. Number 11, Donkey Kong.
Number 10 is Egg.
Number 9, Manhole.
Number 8, Helmet.
Number 7, Mario Cement Factory.
Number 6, Parachute.
Number 5, Fire.
Number 4, Rain Shower.
Number 3, Donkey Kong Jr.
Number 2, Mario Brothers.
And number 1, Greenhouse. All right, Mark, let's close this out. All right, that is going to do it for this episode of Nintendo Cartridge Society. If you think we've got any of these Game & Watch games wrong, let us know. Write into us, Nintendo Cartridge Society at gmail.com. Also, I know there have got to be good games in the vast swaths of Game & Watch games that we did not play. If there are any like absolutely killer ones out there.
Snoopy Tennis.
Oh my God, I want to play Snoopy. I want to play Popeye so bad. Let us know if those are any good, and we will, I guess, just pine after them forever. But yeah, it would just be good to know what other games people love. Remember, rate, review, and follow us on Apple Podcasts. If you like the episode, share it on Facebook or Twitter, wherever you share stuff. We appreciate it when you do. On Twitter, I am, at any rate, at Patrick_Ehlers. Mark is at MKE Mitchell, and the show is at Nincart Society. The Facebook page is just Nintendo Cartridge Society. Olivia Duncan made our logo. Our theme music is provided by 8-Bit Betty. You can get more of his music by going to 8bitbetty.com or by listening right now. For my co-host, Mark Mitchell, this is Patrick Ehlers saying thank you for listening.
Imagine a podcast. Now, imagine a musical. Now, imagine the two of them made 1 million babies. Well, you don't have to imagine it, because it's real, and it has a name. 1 million musicals. Each month, we bring you a brand new, original podcast musical featuring talent from across Broadway, films, and TV. You'll hear tales of spooky ghosts, Wild West shootouts, adventures on the high seas, and much, much more. 1 million musicals. Only a few 100,000 to go.
A Campfire Media podcast.
Campfire.